A sacrifice on f5, a rook crashing through on f1, and a queen delivering the final blow on f2. This is the story of a blitz game where I gave up material twice to rip open my opponent's king and finish the game with checkmate. My opponent was Omar Shaheen 2003, rated 863 to my 845. A closely matched battle in a 3-minute blitz game. The opening? The Scandinavian Defense, one of the oldest responses to e4 in all of chess. Let me show you how this one unfolded. The game begins with 1. Pawn to e4, pawn to d5, the Scandinavian Defense. White captures on d5, and I take back with the queen. Now, after knight to c3, I play queen to a5, which is the main line, getting the queen out of the center to a safer square. White develops naturally with knight to f3, and I respond with knight to f6. Then pawn to d4, and I solidify with pawn to c6. We're following well-known theory here. White plays bishop to g5, pinning my knight, and I develop with knight to d7 to support it. White places the bishop on c4. I play pawn to e6 to guard d5, and then white decides to trade. Bishop takes f6, knight takes f6. A fairly standard exchange. Both sides are developing logically. White now plays knight to e5, a bold centralization of the knight. I respond with bishop to d6, challenging it directly. White plays queen to e2, and I castle kingside to get my king to safety. White castles as well. Now I start expanding on the queen side with pawn to b5, pushing white's bishop back. White retreats to d3, and I fianchetto my bishop with bishop to b7, aiming it at the long diagonal. White pushes pawn to f4, which looks aggressive, but also weakens the king's position. I play rook to e8, bringing my last piece into the game. White plays pawn to a3, a quiet move, and I seize the moment with knight to d5, a powerful centralization. My knight is sitting on the best square on the board. White trades it off with knight takes d5, and I recapture with pawn takes d5, opening the e-file for my rook. White plays pawn to b4, and I tuck my queen to c7, keeping it connected to the king side. And then white makes an ambitious decision. Queen to h5, swinging the queen toward my king. White's queen has arrived on h5, staring at my king side. This looks dangerous, but I calmly play pawn to g6. And this is where my opponent makes a critical decision. Bishop takes g6. White sacrifices the bishop to blow open my king's pawn cover. I take back with pawn takes g6. And now, white plays queen to g4, trying to keep the pressure on. But here's the thing. White has given up a full bishop for this attack, and the attack needs to be decisive. If it isn't, I'll be up material with a winning position. And that's exactly what happens. I play bishop to c8, retreating the bishop to safety and defending along the f-file. White pushes pawn to f5, trying to keep lines open. And this is where everything changes. I play bishop takes f5. This is the key move of the entire game. It looks simple. I'm just taking a pawn. But what I'm really doing is offering a sacrifice. My bishop is now hanging on f5, and white takes it with rook takes f5. But by drawing the rook to f5, I've removed a key defender. Now I play bishop takes e5, capturing white's powerful knight on e5. White recaptures with pawn takes e5, and then I take back with rook takes e5. The dust settles. I've traded down, but look at the position. White's king is exposed, the f-file is open, and my pieces are perfectly coordinated. The attack practically plays itself. White takes back with rook takes e5, and I recapture with queen takes e5. Now my queen is active and powerful in the center. White plays rook to f1, trying to hold, but I strike with queen to e3, check plus, a check that forces the king to h1. I follow up with rook to e8, bringing my last rook into the attack. White plays pawn to h3, and I swing the rook to f8, targeting the f-file. White tries queen to d7, but it's too late. Rook takes f1, check, check. The rook crashes into f1, delivering check. White's king moves to h2, the only square. And now queen to f4, check, check. The queen lands with devastating force. White interposes with pawn to g3, the only move. And then queen to f2, checkmate, checkmate. The queen on f2, the rook on f1, and the pawn on g3 all conspire to create an airtight mating net. The white king on h2 has nowhere to go. That's checkmate. So what can we learn from this game? First, when your opponent sacrifices material to attack you, stay calm. White gave up a bishop with b triple xg6, but the follow-up wasn't strong enough. That left white down material with an exposed position. Second, the power of open files. Once the f-file opened, my rook and queen worked together like a battering ram. The combination of rook x f1 check, queen f4 check, and queen f2 checkmate is a pattern worth remembering. A queen and rook coordinating on the f-file against a king stuck on the h-file. And third, sometimes the best sacrifices are the quiet ones. B triptych 5 didn't look flashy, but it triggered a chain of exchanges that left white's king completely defenseless. That was the moment this game was won. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to see more games analyzed like this, with the stories behind every move, consider subscribing to the channel. It really does help. I'll see you in the next one.